April 10th, 2026, Islamabad, Pakistan. A room inside the Serena Hotel. 2 delegations, 2 flags, 2 countries that have not sat across a table from each other in 47 years. On one side, J.D. Vance, the Vice President of the United States of America, the second most powerful man on earth, flanked by Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, until Iran looked across the table, pointed at Kushner and Witkoff, and said one word: out. Iran kicked Trump's own son-in-law out of the room before the talks even properly began. Because Tehran looked at Kushner, the man who helped broker the Abraham Accords, the man whose entire Middle East legacy is built on pro-Israel architecture, and said, "You're not neutral. You do not belong in this room." That moment, that specific ejection, tells you everything you need to know about how dangerous, how fragile, and how consequential the next 12 days are going to be. The ceasefire expires April 22nd. 12 days. Either a deal gets done, or the war comes back. Bigger, harder, more devastating than before. This is the most dangerous diplomatic meeting since the Iranian hostage crisis of 1979, and it is happening right now. Subscribe before we go further, because this story changes every single hour. Hit that button. Let's get into it. Let us establish exactly what is happening here, because the mainstream media is not giving you the full weight of this moment. The United States and Iran have been enemies for 47 years. Since 1979, since Iranian students stormed the American embassy in Tehran and held 52 Americans hostage for 444 days, these 2 countries have not held a face-to-face high-level meeting. Not once. Every previous negotiation, the nuclear deal talks, the back-channel discussions, today, that ended. J.D. Vance, a sitting American vice president, sat across from Iran's parliament speaker Ghalibaf and foreign minister Araghchi. Direct, face-to-face. In Islamabad. The negotiations have a strict deadline. The temporary ceasefire will end in less than 2 weeks on April 22nd. 12 days to solve a 47-year problem. 12 days to bridge the specific gap between 2 countries whose fundamental disagreements on nuclear weapons, on regional proxy forces, on the Strait of Hormuz, on sanctions, have resisted every previous diplomatic effort for nearly 5 decades. And the room almost did not happen. The last phase of the ceasefire negotiation was finalized without Kushner and Witkoff, after Iran asked for them to leave because of their pro-Israel views. Think about what that means. Iran looked at Trump's personal team and said, 2 of your 3 men are disqualified. We will only talk to Vance. The ejection of Kushner and Witkoff is not just a diplomatic detail. It is Iran communicating its red line in the most direct possible way, before a single word of the actual negotiation was spoken. J.D. Vance did not come to Islamabad as a messenger. He came as a decision maker, and understanding what he is actually authorized to offer tells you exactly how serious America is about getting a deal done. Washington's proposal centers on Iran's enriched uranium, ballistic missiles, sanctions relief, and reopening the Strait of Hormuz. Uranium enrichment is Donald Trump's red line. America's position is clear. Iran must hand over its stockpile of highly enriched uranium. Iran must accept limits on its ballistic missile program. Iran must permanently reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Iran must end support for regional proxy groups, Hezbollah, the Houthis, Iraqi militias. In exchange, sanctions relief, frozen assets released, economic normalization. The specific economic oxygen that Iran's devastated post-war economy desperately needs as the survival requirement whose provision only America can authorize. The gap between these positions is enormous, but here is what makes this moment different from every previous negotiation. The war changed the calculation on both sides. America went to war and could not achieve a quick victory. 40 days of the most sophisticated military campaign in recent history did not break Iran, did not force a surrender, did not produce the regime change that some in Washington had quietly hoped for. Trump needed a deal, not because America lost, but because the war's cost, in dollars, in gas prices, in global economic disruption, in NATO alliance damage, had reached the specific threshold where a deal was worth more than continued fighting. Iran went to war and survived. More than survived. Iran closed the Strait of Hormuz and held it closed for 40 days, the longest Hormuz closure in history. Iran absorbed American and Israeli strikes and kept firing back. Iran's military showed the world that asymmetric resistance against the most powerful military on earth was possible in a way that no previous conflict had demonstrated at this scale. Both sides came to Islamabad because both sides needed to. That is the specific condition that successful negotiations require, and it is present in this room today. There are 3 specific moments in these talks that will determine whether humanity gets a deal or gets a war. Iran's position is non-negotiable. Israel must stop bombing Lebanon. America's position, stated by both Trump and Vance, is that Lebanon is not covered by the ceasefire. Israel has explicitly said it will continue operations regardless. The Lebanon question is the specific tripwire whose activation collapses everything. One major Israeli strike in Lebanon during these talks does not just create a diplomatic problem, it gives Iran's hardliners the specific justification to walk out that they have been looking for since the ceasefire was announced. The White House has claimed Iran is willing to surrender its stock of enriched uranium, a position Iran has not officially accepted. Two completely different versions of what was agreed. America says Iran committed to giving up enriched uranium. Iran says it committed to no such thing. When two parties enter a negotiation with contradictory understandings of their own prior commitments, that is not a negotiation. That is a confrontation waiting to happen. Iran ejected Kushner and Witkoff from the room. But Kushner and Witkoff are Trump's personal envoys, the specific individuals whose pro-Israel positioning reflects the actual Trump administration's worldview. Vance alone cannot make commitments that contradict what Kushner and Witkoff represent as the Trump administration's real Middle East architecture. The ejection created a specific problem. The person Iran is willing to talk to may not have the full authority to deliver what Iran needs. And the people who have that authority are sitting outside the room, J.D. Vance versus Iran. The most dangerous meeting since 1979. 12 days, one hotel in Islamabad, two delegations that entered the room with complete distrust, contradictory understandings of their own agreements, and a war waiting to restart the moment the ceasefire expires on April 22nd. This is not just diplomacy. This is the specific moment where the next decade of Middle Eastern history gets written, in one direction or another. Either Vance walks out of Islamabad with a framework that holds, and Pakistan's diplomatic miracle becomes the foundation of a new regional order, or the talks collapse, and the world finds out what happens when a 47-year conflict restarts after a 2-week pause with both sides angrier, more armed, and less willing to compromise than before. The world is watching Islamabad. Every hour matters. Every word matters. Hit subscribe, because we are going to cover every single development as it happens. This story is not over. It is just beginning.